Hi Facebook Live, we're back. Heather and Carla here from Nima. We are still in Austin, still trucking along at South by Southwest. This is our last full day here though.
I know, I'm kind of bummed to be leaving before we get a chance to test every breakfast taco in town.
We'll get there. So we haven't been on Facebook Live for a couple days here. We've all been kind of spread out in different places, but going to lots of interesting sessions. Talk about some of the good things you've heard the last couple days.
Yeah, no, I've gone to a couple great sessions and some that you would not necessarily think would directly apply to us. But one that I found fascinating was a panel about the convergence of restaurants and grocery stores. And there were two things that I took away from that particularly for the Nima fans in our community we should be thinking about, which is that if you're ordering from an online grocery delivery place, you need to be really specific about the brands that you're ordering so you get exactly what you want, particularly if you have any food sensitivities where ingredients may be adulterated. So that was really important. And then the second one that was probably even more salient, and we've actually seen some examples of this, is that when you're ordering food from, an Uber Eats or Caviar or something like that, those drivers don't have a food license, food handling license, and therefore things can happen. We actually saw this where a restaurant in San Francisco that we've done a lot of food testing at, Pika Pika, someone wrote on Yelp that they had a bad experience with some food from there. They happened to have some of it left over. This is actually before Nima came out on the market, and we tested the yuca fries and they were completely fine. And what we realized was the person had ordered from a food delivery person. We have no idea what else was in the back of their car, what they'd put on top of the food, had they touched other food before that. So I think that's just something for people to keep in mind. I hadn't really grokked too much of that.
And I know when I've used such services like Postmates or Order Ahead, sometimes they'll call me and say, hey, they accidentally didn't give you the gluten-free bun. Is that okay, or do I need to have them make you another one? I'm like, I appreciate you calling, because yes, please make me a new one.
Yeah.
So I think that every time you add more middlemen, it just gets even more confusing, and especially for people with food intolerances.
Yeah. And then another panel I went to was about body positivity, and it had some editors from both Self and Teen Vogue, along with two influencers and comedians. And it was fabulous because one of the things they pointed out was the need to see real people using your product. And that's why we have a community wall. So if you've never had a chance to look at what people are actually doing, you can always check the hashtag NimaTested and see what all the community members are out there doing. But we love sharing that on the website too. And I think that's just super critical for us to show you that everyone is using it, not just the team here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that on Instagram, we're also reposting stories from folks, sharing their photos, and I think it just makes the community even stronger when we have that great visual bond too, not just in the app, in the data.
Exactly. Well, you went to a panel about restaurants and food, and that sounds pretty explosive.
Yeah, so this was yesterday morning. It was a great panel called Occupy Your Meal, and so there's this whole movement happening in the U.S. to really start understanding what's in your food, where it's coming from, whether it's at a restaurant or what you're buying at the grocery store. And it was just really fascinating. I mean, it was, they shared some stats like 2/3 of Americans are overweight, 1/3 are obese. Pesticides are causing tons of health problems in Americans. I mean, there's huge problems with health in the U.S., and a lot of that can probably be attributed to what we're eating. So there's a restaurant called Snappy Salads. I had never heard of it before, but the CEO and founder was on the panel discussing about how they source their food responsibly, not just sustainably, but making sure it's free from additives and other things that could be really causing issues. And he shared something that was quite shocking but yet very true, that restaurants are just assuming and counting on you to be uneducated and to not ask questions about what's in your food, how many calories is it, how many servings are you giving me, is it a plate of pasta that's fit for a family of 4, or is it for 1? So it was really interesting to see folks looking at the restaurant industry, looking at grocery stores, and trying to kind of take a step back and maybe go back towards simpler times. Start shopping at farmers markets again, because you can then support your local farmers, and then also cook at home whenever you can, which is something that we've been hearing a lot.
Yeah, I think that's come up at almost every panel relating to food and in health, even just cooking at home and taking care of yourself in that way too.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't cook at home, if you're busy, you've got a family to feed, that's totally understandable. So there's also a really interesting organization, SXSW. They're just starting to build a real presence. They're based in the Bay Area with us, but they're starting to certify restaurants based on how accurate their claims are on their menu. Is this actually locally farmed pork, or did these tomatoes really come from a certain farm in California that you claim they are? So they're doing some really interesting work, and I can't wait to go to their website and check out the list of restaurants in the Bay Area that are certified, because I'm going to start prioritizing that for sure.
For certain. Well, I mean, that just continues to be a theme, and we'll be writing up a lot of all of the themes that we've heard, because you hear one thing in a panel about food and nutrition and another thing in a panel about agriculture, and they all come together, and we'll be writing kind of these things sort of germinate in our heads and sharing that later this week.
Yeah, and in addition to food, we're also going to a lot of health sessions, because Nima really does straddle health and nutrition, and the dining experience too. But there was a really interesting panel we both went to with the CEO of Everlywell, and then it also talked about gene editing.
CRISPR.
Which some of that's a little over my head, but Carla, I mean, what were some of the main points that really stuck with you from there?
I think the top one was that consumers really want the control in their hands, and they want to be able to do these things themselves. So Everlywell allows you to order things like food sensitivity tests online. You pay a small fee, they connect you, they do the lab work, then they connect you with a doctor who can go over the results with you. That's exactly what our audience wants. They want to be able to do these things for themselves. You, as the Nima community, don't want to wait for someone to tell you if something's gluten-free or trust their words. You want to know for yourself. And I that really was powerful to me. The other part of that panel that was fascinating was there was a bioethicist from Stanford. And one of the things with all this CRISPR technology is this gene editing. And her question is, well, what is a disease, and what constitutes a disease, and what do we actually then choose to fix? And there's a lot of these emerging questions that we don't have answers for yet, but we also need a foundational science backing in ourselves to make educated decisions as a consumer. I mean, going back to Everlywell, you are going to get those results from a doctor, but you need to understand what you're asking for and what those results might lead to. And that just requires a lot of understanding about what are the questions that you're asking and what are the decisions that you're making.
I think it's fascinating, this whole burgeoning industry around the consumerization of healthcare. I mean, if I can order sensitivity testing, have it delivered to my house, and that saves me a doctor visit, taking off time from work. I mean, not everyone has the luxury that they can take off time for work and go for 3 or 4 or 5 different lab tests. So I think it's really interesting, and it's really empowering having these resources to kind of figure out what's going on in our own health. I think so many of us are desperate for answers and data and information, but we're not always able to get it just because the daily grind.
Yep. And the last panel I went to this morning was about how healthcare, about patients, our patients' consumers, or our consumers' patients, and where's the blend. But the most fascinating thing there were the stories from my health teams in terms of how people are using community to inform them, and what are people learning from other consumers. So they give the example of, a lot of times pharma does a really great job of saying, here's the medicine and here's all the side effects, but they don't tell you how to mitigate those. So members there are actually sharing, hey, I'm on this drug, and guess what, you need to eat a half an hour beforehand, and here's the specific thing I do. I eat 60% protein or whatever it is, and then here's what you do 30 minutes later if you are feeling woozy or whatever. And I just love that it's also about the patients taking everything back for themselves and really providing a miraculous community to share these ways to cope.
That's great. And I mean, most of the time we're using the internet to find out more information, whether it's accurate or not. So it's great that it's coming from these credible sources.
It is. It's fabulous. So we've had a really great time so far. We've got a few more food tests to post.
We do.
And
we're going to be sharing some blog posts as well, recapping South by, but also kind of our dining adventures out here in Austin.
I'm still shocked the food trucks have turned out to be A-okay.
I mean, such a small kitchen. How they managed to keep it gluten-free? I don't know.
But my two things were delicious. So
that's great. So yeah, and again, let us know if you have questions. You can comment in the video. We're also still live tweeting when we're at really interesting sessions. On Twitter, we're at NimaSensor. On Instagram, we're sharing all of our food tests, so that's at NimaSensor as well. We're excited to provide more information this week on our blog, and we'll see you later. And South by, thanks again for another great conference.